Hi everybody, welcome to my first AccuQuilt video for the channel. I've been talking about adding AccuQuilt for a while. I'm very excited to bring AccuQuilt products to you. I'm now a member of the Go Getter program. I'll link information about that below. I've got 3 of their cutters. I have the AccuQuilt Go, which is a hand crank, the Go Big, which is electric, and the little Go Me, which is also a hand crank. I bought the Ready Set Go starter set back in March 2021. That's how long I've been using AccuQuilt products. It came with this AccuQuilt cutter, the hand crank, an 8-inch cube, a 2.5-inch strip die, and a book. That's still available. I'll link that for you below. One of the very first, if not the very first die I bought was this square. It's a 5-inch square. So it's 4.5-inch finish. Essentially, you can make your own charm squares out of bigger pieces of fabric and yardage. We're going to use this today and go through some scrap fabric, see how many squares we can cut, and then come up with a fun project. This is going to be a Christmas in July project. I've decided to work with the Go Big today. If you've been watching my channel for a while, you know my craft room has changed. Everything came from a smaller room into a bigger room. Now I actually have room to set up the Go Big and plug it in and use that. I'm very excited to use this. I have this nice pile of Merry and Bright fabric by me and my sister designs, Motive Fabrics. I did a quilt along with this fabric a few years back. All of this fabric is starched and pressed and ready to cut. We're going to see how many 5-inch squares we can get and what we can make out of this. We're going to start by setting up the cutter. I'm using the Go Big electric cutter today. I will have to plug it in. They have a new electric cutter called a Go Bolt, which does have a battery pack available. It's lighter than the Go Big. I have no trouble lifting the Go Big. I don't think it's that heavy. I'll look up and see how much it weighs. I'll put that on the screen for you. If you have a Go Big, you want to make sure you've got a flat surface. I'm going to go ahead and tilt it this way, and it's going to open up. I'm going to bring the camera over and I'm going to show you the bed of the machine. Here's what it looks like open. When we work with our dies, they're going to go through here. It'll go through the cutter and it'll come out here. They do make a die catcher which sits underneath and then your die can rest on it. I currently do not have the die catcher. We'll be working without that today. Around this side is where you plug in the power. Down here at the bottom. Again, this is an electric cutter. You have to plug this one in. I've got that plugged in. The other end goes to your power source. When you push the on button, you'll see that it turns green. When you're using your electric cutter, if you get your fingers or something near here, you probably saw that little light flash, it gives you a warning and it won't cut. You won't be able to hurt yourself with this. It's got a lot of great safeguards. Let's talk about using the die, how you lay out your fabric, and let's cut some fabric. In order to use a die, you also have to have a cutting mat. Without a cutting mat, you can't do anything. Be aware that some of the dies and cutting mats are a similar size to your quilting rulers. If you're doing another project, don't lay your quilting ruler next to your die cutting mat. You may accidentally pick it up and put it into the machine and ruin your ruler. Be careful about that. We're going to use a 6x12 cutting mat today to go with this 6x12 die. When you look at the dies, they all give you information here which product it can be used with. It tells you this can be used with the Go Baby and the Go Me are the same. They're the little tiny cutter. It used to be called a Go Baby, now they're called Go Me. This also says Go Big. This package was printed before the Go Bolt came out. As we're working with dies, unless I get a new die, none of mine will say Go Bolt because I've been collecting dies for over 5 years now, and the Go Bolt just came out. You can see there's a note that there are free pattern downloads available. We can cut up to 6 layers of fabric, so 2 squares and 6 layers means we can cut 12 5-inch squares with one pass of this die through our cutter. Let's open the die. We're going to have a look at it. I'm going to spend a little bit of extra time going over the die, the mat, and that type of thing since this is the first video. I went ahead and pulled off the plastic. It makes crinkly noises. On the back, you'll see there's a sample of something you can do with the die. They all have a really nice picture of a project, gives you some information, and when you create an account with AccuQuilt, they have a lot of free patterns. You can look for free patterns that work with the dies that you have. Go ahead and take this out of the sleeve. If you keep these on your shelf, they have a really nice sticker on the side. You can tell that this is the 5-inch square die. A lot of people keep them like this. They don't save the packaging. I'm in Arizona. If you're new to the channel, it's dry, it's dusty. I save the packaging. Here's what the die looks like. You'll see there's a little fabric string in there. I've used this before. You do get a die pick. It almost looks like a dental tool. So if you ever get threads caught, you can clean that out. This is the 6x12 cutting mat. Let me take this out of the plastic. You'll see this cutting mat fits right over this die. Sometimes you may be using a die like this and maybe you only want to cut one square. You can use a smaller mat, or you can place your mat like this, just as long as you cover the area you want to cut. But don't use a cutting mat that's bigger than your die, because as it goes through the machine, it can move and shift. So you always want the appropriate size for your die, or something smaller if you're cutting a smaller portion. If you've never seen an AccuQuilt die before, don't push your hand down on it. Right here are the blades. So there's blades inside. This is foam, this is foam. Right here are your cutting blades. So you'll lay down your fabric, we'll cover it with the mat, and when we put it through the machine squishes it and exposes the blades, and that's how your fabric is cut. In addition to fabric, you can cut things like paper, cardstock, craft foam. If you've got kids and you want to make foam shapes, they have a lot of fun applique dies with animals and gnomes and gingerbread men. They will work really well with craft foam. It's going to be a different amount of layers. 6 layers of cotton fabric. Things like denim that are thicker, 1 to 2 layers depending. Same thing with craft foam. When I put this through the Go Big, I can put this through this direction or this direction. If I'm using the Go or the Go Me, it's going to go one way because it's a smaller cutter. The advantage to the larger cutter is you can put it through either way, or if you have two, you can have a die race. Let's say you're cutting these 5-inch squares and you've got another die that's the same size as this one. You can put 2 dies through the Go Big or the Go Bolt and cut them at the same time. Let's talk about how to lay out the fabric on your die. An easy way to remember it is to have this label facing your belly, which is over here for me, and then this will run through the machine like this. If I want to run it through the machine like this, I need to adjust how I lay my fabric on the die. But I always like to follow how I learned. AccuQuilt has some great videos. Label at your belly, lengthwise grain. Let's talk about lengthwise grain. Here's a piece of fabric that I want to cut. This piece has the selvage, which makes it really easy. So the selvage can face me or face that direction. There's your label. When you don't have a selvage, you can do the pull test. Let's say you're just working with a scrap. You have no idea which way is your lengthwise grain. If I pull it this way and it stretches, do you see that? It stretches. It does make a little bit of a noise, but it really curves and stretches. Now I'm going to turn it the other way, and it's really tight and it doesn't curve and it doesn't stretch. That's my lengthwise grain. That's the way I want to lay that. All of the fabric I have today has been starched. I probably should iron it. I'll get a better result if I iron it. I'm going to go for it today. If you watch my videos, you know sometimes I just go for it. We have a little fun here. I'm going to cut off this piece. That's a weird size shape. I'm not going to be able to get the square out of that. Throw that off to the side. I've got this piece of fabric. You have to make sure you cover the area that you're going to cut. So if you lay it down like that, you can see I've got part here that's exposed. I'm not going to get a full 5-inch square. So you want to make sure you completely cover it. So when I lay that down, I've got a little corner here. Do you see that? Because I've got this weird cut out of this fabric. So I'm going to slide that up, and I go as close to the edge as I can. If you're cutting a larger piece of fabric, you can leave a 1/4 inch on either side. That's a really safe way to do it. You do not waste fabric. I waste more fabric cutting things wrong than I do when I use AccuQuilt. Then I'm going to fold it, because remember we can do 6 layers. So I'm going to hold that down. My whole shape is covered. I'm going to fold this up. It's at a little bit of an angle to the die board. You see that? It's not straight, it's at an angle. That's because when you run this through the machine, if it was straight, it would kind of bump like a speed bump and it wouldn't cut effectively. So everything on their dies is at an angle, and then you run it through the machine straight. Let's go ahead and lay this down, and you just fold back and forth. I'm going to get at least 4 squares from that. Let's smooth that out. And you can see I'm not going to get another square here, but I have extra over here. I have to look at it. It's cut kind of funny. Do you see I've got this weird cut? If this was a full fat quarter, I could fold it over and get 2 more squares, but it's cut weird. So for right now, all I want to do is do that with this piece of fabric. I only have 2 layers. I can grab another piece of fabric. Here's another piece. It's nice and starched. I starched these really heavy. They almost feel like paper. I've got the selvage on it. I'm going to keep the selvage toward me. And it's easier for me to see where the edge is here than here because I have overlapping fabric. So I'm going to flip this around. We'll line up, line that up, line that up. Now I'm at 3 layers. Let's fold. I need to look for the top. I don't think, nope, not quite long enough. So we're going to get a couple squares out of this, and then after I cut it, I'll have to see if I have enough room for any more. I may not. Let's grab one more. So I'm only at 3 layers. This is a smaller piece. I can get 2 more out of that. We're at 4 layers. Let's grab something else. I can put up to 2 more layers on this, and you can see all of these have really weird shapes and really weird cuts out of them. I think I'll get 2 full squares. If not, that's okay. 2 white, 2, 3, 4, 5. I can do 1 more. There's another one with a weird cut out of it. And there's the selvage. That's part of the reason why I leave selvages on. I use the AccuQuilt a lot. It's not hard to do the pull test, but if you have the selvage on, it's just a little faster. Now this one does look like I could fold it and get another 2 squares. However, I'm at my 6 layers, so I'm going to stop there. And you can see I've got fabric kind of going everywhere. It doesn't matter. If it's not between the die and the die mat, it's not going to get cut. The only fabric that's going to get cut is what's on the die underneath the die mat. All of the extra will just slide through the cutter. Here's my die, my 6 layers of fabric, the cutting mat. I need to turn it on. There's a green light. It's covered up by the little piece of fabric there. I know that it's on. This extra fabric, it will just slide through the machine. You can roll it out of the way if you want. Don't worry about it. I do this all the time. We're going to go ahead and slide this in, and when it gets close enough, the machine will grab it. If you're holding your die, you'll feel it grab, and then it'll move through the machine and it'll come out on the other side. Here we go. Let's cut our squares. See how the die just sort of hangs out there and waits for me? If you have a die catcher, it'll sit up nice and straight like that. Let's go ahead, pull this out. When you take your die mats off, you want to rub them a little bit. Sometimes static builds up in the machine and you don't lift it. You want to go ahead and slide it off. Look at our beautiful squares. All nice and neat and cut perfect to size. Let's go ahead and peel away the fabric. And sometimes you'll see this. There's a thread that didn't get cut. It's just like with a rotary cutter. Every once in a while there's an odd thread that doesn't get cut. I find that when they're starched pretty heavy and when they're good quality fabric, that rarely happens. I have used cheaper fabric before and not starched it, and sometimes I get a little bit more of those little pieces. Here's all of our squares. Let's move this out of the way. Let's see what we've got here. 2 of the green wreaths, 2 of the red wreaths, so we've got 4 squares, 6, 7, 8, and then remember we folded the white, so one is right side down, one's right side up, 9, 10, 11, 12. I just got 12 squares fairly quickly, even though I was explaining it. What I want to do is go through the rest of my fabric, cut a bunch of squares, count the squares. I'll tell you how many squares I have, and we'll figure out a project. Here's all the squares that I cut. I didn't even cut the whole pile of fabric. I stopped at 81 squares. You can see I've got them sorted by color and by print. As I was cutting them, I just kept a running tally on a sticky note, went until I hit 81. With 81 squares, I can make a 9 by 9 square lap quilt. So 9 across, 9 down. These are 5-inch squares. When you sew them together, you've got your 1/4-inch seam allowance all the way around. They're 4.5 inches finished. 9 times 4.5 inches gives you 40.5 inches. We'll have a quilt that's 40.5 inches square. That's a great lap size quilt. This is a great way to use up your scraps. And since it's Christmas in July, I'm going to make this now. You know, when Christmas comes around, you always need a last minute gift. There's always something unexpected. Maybe there's a party you need to go to. Maybe you want to decorate. This is a great size for that. I'm going to lay this out. I'll put some pictures on the screen of the layout. Make sure to check out the Christmas in July sales. If you have comments or questions, definitely let me know, and stay tuned to see what this quilt is going to look like. Here's the finished quilt. I measured it. It is square. I have the camera up on a tripod. You can see the tripod legs, so it looks a little bit tilted, but it's perfectly square. We've got 40.5 inches. This is a great lap quilt. All I have to do is quilt it and bind it. Cutting all the squares took no time at all, and sewing this together is very easy. 1/4-inch seam allowance. I sew each of the rows, and then I'll press one row one direction, the next row the other direction, and I alternate. That way when I put the top together row to row, all of the seams nest. This fabric collection has some wonderful bias stripe prints. I think I'm going to try and make a scrappy binding with this. Thank you so much for joining me today for my first AccuQuilt video. Let me know what you think. Please leave me comments or questions below the videos, and there'll be a link below for AccuQuilt if you'd like to explore the products. I'll be back soon with more AccuQuilt. Please like, subscribe, share with your friends. I also have a Facebook group, which I'll link below the video. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.